in their first 3 seasons in D1 history. Now, preseason is all about meshing the new faces with the old faces, and some of those are being integrated once again. Trey Mann says he feels good being back out there with the Hornets as they're getting ready in Charleston, and they're getting ready for the first preseason game on Sunday against OKC.
I feel 110% health-wise. Like I'm able to do everything, both practices, both days. I've been at it since April, like really working and getting my rhythm back. Just being around the guys. Like with my injury, I was away from the guys a lot. So just being around them, not even like on the court, like just being around them in general, just feels real good. Just to keep building what we have.
All right, now if Charlotte FC's loss to Montreal wasn't painful enough, another blow comes along with it. 3 players will be missing their upcoming match against DC United. Adilson Malanda for that red card shown in that last match, as well as Ashley Westwood and Brant Bronico, both of them for yellow card accumulation. So that's 3 starters, and Dean Smith addressed that situation and how they plan to continue on.
We've got players that can come in. Obviously, them 3 players are going to be a miss to us. A player of the season last year, our captain, and BB, who covers the most ground out of the whole of the team. We've got to put some other players in, probably who haven't had as many minutes as we would probably like, but it's their chance to get some minutes now.
Definitely a tough blow for them as they're looking for all the points they can get. Just 2 matches to go in their season before it's time for playoffs.
Yeah. Man, can't believe it's almost the playoffs.
I know, crazy.
And then obviously you got Carolina playing this weekend. That'll be fun to watch as well.
Yeah, a lot of sports ahead.
Too.
Yes, hopefully a nice day.
Yeah.
And we've got the stream for folks. Brad's standing by.
That's right. Weather Impact stream starting at 6:30 with a special guest, I guess. But they'll have more for you, whoever that person is. Anyway, they'll be on at 6:30, and then from 7 to 9.
I think it's Scotty.
Okay.
He's a friend to the Weather Impact team.
Got it.
But yes, Weather Impact followed by Live Impact News at 7 o'clock.
See you tonight, guys. Thanks for joining us.
these views firsthand, but the camera's right there up at the Beach Mountain Club. It is beautiful. Now this morning, crisp and cool might have made you feel like you're up in the mountains, because in the Piedmont, it was just as cool as it was up there. 52 degrees up in the Boone area, 52 in Jefferson, 57 in Charlotte this morning. But look at Salisbury over to Asheboro, 48. I think we're going to see more of those 40s coming up tonight into tomorrow morning. 75 and 57, about as normal a day as you can get. And no one would forget, trust me, I don't, this date back in 2019. 2 days in a row of 99 degrees. I was camping that weekend. It was brutally hot. The hottest October record ever on those first 2 days of the month. And by the way, about a week later, it was cool again. So it was just a weird freak heat wave that happened at the beginning of October. Normally, like we mentioned yesterday, 90 is not normal in October. It's only happened 15 Octobers all time here in the Charlotte area. So it is not a very common occurrence. I think we're done for sure based on the long range forecast. And with temperatures in the 70s, who needs to talk about 90s? I got my windows open today. I'm going to leave them open tonight because with dew points in the 40s, you can get free air conditioning. I love this time of year. You're almost at the point where you can just use the window as the thermostat. Close it when it's cold, open it when it's hot. And tonight will be a good night to open it because radiational cooling in place gives you the perfect setup for things to cool down. And that sunset's coming up. Look at my watch here in Charlotte, 7:06 p.m. Clear skies, so tonight I'm going 52 at the airport, but I wouldn't be shocked at my house and away from uptown. We might see some upper 40s, so I'm looking at places like down towards South Charlotte, maybe over towards the Matthews area, certainly up in the Huntersville area. There's going to be a few of those cool pockets in and around Mecklenburg County that get down in the upper 40s. Tomorrow, very similar to today. 75, 76 degrees, just absolutely picture perfect. Surface map, always great when there's not a lot going on. There's not much on the surface. We've got high pressure and control. Some clouds and moisture coming in from the south. That's a little tropical wave that's near Florida. It has a small chance to develop. It's not going to, but it is going to increase moisture as we go into next week. And the first thing you'll notice is the increase in dew points. Dew points could jump into the upper 50s Monday, Tuesday with that influx of tropical moisture. As much as I love low dew points, I would love to get some rain just as much. So hopefully we'll get some of that. Beautiful weekend out at the Speedway. The Roval 400, it's a race where they can run it in the rain because it is a road course. They can put the tires on if it's not pouring. Visibility is an issue when it rains there. It's not light rain. But, usually this time of year you're dealing with landfalling tropical system or it's freezing cold. It seems to be one of those two. This year is just about perfect. So great weekend for the Speedway. They should have great conditions. Probably some increasing clouds on Sunday for that race because of the influx of that moisture from the south. You'll see that influx of moisture into the low country of South Carolina. I would be surprised to see that sneak north if we see more of an influx there. But right now, don't think this is going to be a drought buster. This is not enough rain to bust a drought. I think we need like 4 to 5 inches of rain. Brittany Van Voorhees today did a good piece in our early shows on Linear talking about how much rain we need. Now, just to put that in perspective, normal rainfall in October is like 3.16, I believe. So that's roughly 2 to 3 inches above our normal rainfall. That's what we basically need. You don't need normal rainfall. So here's the long-range futurecast. Interesting influx of moisture from the south there. Also notice kind of a little bit of a wedge configuration, high pressure to the north. But watch this cold front come down. This cold front, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably going to do more than that tropical moisture will. It'll help squeeze some of it out, and we could see some thunderstorms. And then look at the big high pressure over the northeast. That will really cool us down late next week. There's our tropical wave, only a 10% chance of development. That one in the Atlantic, you see that and you go, it's only 20% chance. That's actually a much more favorable spot to develop long range. The 20% is just because of uncertainty. I actually think that will develop long range. That's the main development region down there in the central Atlantic, and that's a very favorable location for a tropical system. So just a heads up, we're likely going to have something out there eventually. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This basically gets us through the middle of next week, and you see this and think it's crazy warm. Well, this is just above normal for this time of year. Our average high next week is like 75, 76, so 78, 79 would be above normal. So don't be shocked if we see some of that as we go into next week. Certainly looks like it's going to be a pretty cool stretch by the end of the week. But this weekend, not so cool. 79 on Saturday, 80 on Sunday. But I wouldn't be surprised if we say upper 70s if we have more clouds. It just is going to feel more humid on Sunday than we're going to see on Saturday because of that influx of moisture and cloud cover coming in from the south. We're going to take a long look at our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast because we've got a stretch there between Saturday and Wednesday where it could be near 80 degrees. That's not crazy hot, but that's certainly above normal for this time of year. And the rain chances really ramp up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But look at that cold front. By Thursday, a high of 68. 68 on Friday, only low 70s for next weekend. That is truly going to be a significant cool down. Maybe our first, what I would call, really chilly air of the season, because that will actually be slightly below normal for this time of year. So we'll actually, embrace that, especially after all the warm weather we had. Quick look at the drought monitor, because we mentioned this yesterday. I know Tim and I will talk about this maybe briefly today. But as we mentioned, we need the rain. That's why I'm excited for that rain next week. The drought monitor shows most of the Carolinas still abnormally dry, and the coastal plain from South Carolina to North Carolina, moderate drought conditions. The only improvement we saw in the last week were parts of the mountains because we had scattered storms last week into the weekend, and that helped soak them. So stay tuned. Coming up, we're going to talk about the government shutdowns, impacts on the hurricane season and FEMA, and of course, we'll talk with Tim Buckley from WFMY. Stick right there. All right, welcome back. Tim Buckley joins me as always from WFMY. Tim, good to see you today. How's the weather up in Greensboro today?
It is a delight and a pleasure just to be outside. Just to be on this side of the earth, it's always a pleasure. We like to be above ground, but it's a nice day to be outdoors. A crisp feeling for sure. Definitely kind of cool.
It's a why are we working kind of day, right?
Hey, I'm happy I do most of my weather hits outside on a day like today. We have the weather garden up here. We use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is the day to be outside and enjoy.
At least today.
It's right. Absolutely amazing. So, drought monitor came out today, Tim. Kind of what we expected. Not a lot of improvement, but the mountain saw a little bit. We only got a little bit of rain early this week, so that wasn't a shock. In the tropics, though, we've got Imelda now a post-tropical system, and I'm actually shocked how quickly it kind of fell apart. It does not look like much. I see you got your satellite image up there. That thing fell apart almost as quickly as Humberto.
So, yeah, something definitely going on out there, right? So all of that sheer, I guess, with the lingering front, and, we can't forget the effects of cold water, I suppose, and it is pretty cold water. But the same thing that happened to Umberto. And I guess Bermuda fared okay. Did you see a lot about damage there? I know they had some 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts, but I didn't research fully on how they ended up from it.
Yeah, I just saw a lot of videos of just people enjoying the wind. It was super windy. I just saw windy video, but I did not see much damage. So they did have some big gusts. And, on the topic of hurricane season, Tim, we've got this government shutdown. And going into the season, we were worried about the lack of funding for the NOAA, National Weather Service, FEMA. And now with the government shutdown, there's a possibility this could have some impacts as well. And we're going to dive into that a little bit this evening to see if there are going to be impacts. Ivan Rodriguez from CNN dove into this day and got to the bottom to see how FEMA and NOAA would be impacted by this current government shutdown.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Federal Emergency Management Agency will remain open because they're deemed essential to the protection of lives and property, but employees will still feel the impact.
They're doing the work without pay, without an understanding of when this shutdown is going to end. Will they get that back pay eventually?
Chris Vygotsky with WiscoNet says he hopes the shutdown is resolved quickly so it doesn't severely impact the livelihoods of employees. The Weather Forecasting Agency has less than 4,000 employees for the first time in decades. It lost more than 560 people to layoffs, early retirement incentives, and other programs aimed at shrinking the size of the federal government. The agency has enough staff to accurately predict tropical storms and hurricanes, says a NOAA official who spoke to CNN on the condition of anonymity for fear of retribution.
The question, of course, is for how long and what other supporting capabilities, if you will, might be compromised, especially with so many people being furloughed right now.
With some local NWS offices short-staffed, former NOAA Administrator Richard Spinrad worries about weather events happening simultaneously across the country.
What happens if we have another hurricane outbreak and some wildfires in the West, severe drought in the Midwest? All of a sudden, you're stretching that workforce so very thin with regard to providing those services across the country and for all of these different environmental hazards.
Oh, Ivan Rodriguez joins us right now. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us. It just seems like NOAA, and especially the Weather Service, has had to deal with short staffing. They've had to deal with funding cuts, layoffs, fork in the road, resignations. What did you find is the biggest concern that they have with the government shutdown?
Well, when I spoke with the NOAA administrator, he was telling me how he had spoken with former colleagues, and overall, that they're just very concerned in terms of how long this government shutdown is going to last. Like a lot of federal workers, the main concern is, especially for NOAA and FEMA workers, that they're still working, but they're working without pay. And for a short amount of time, that is doable for a lot of families, but the longer this goes on, they're really concerned for their own livelihoods in the end. And again, the NOAA administrator was mentioning how they're all meteorologists who want to get the forecasts as best as possible, and they're moving pieces across the board, really moving meteorologists across the country to those offices that needed them the most to try and fill those staffing gaps. But again, that can only go on for so long. And I thought it was really interesting, and the way he put it into perspective was, well, what happens when you do get all of different kinds of severe weather or different kinds of, as he mentioned, hazards across the country for an agency that's already spread pretty thin.
And Ivan, how does this affect FEMA, and what would happen to the government's flood insurance in this case?
Well, in terms of FEMA, it's interesting because FEMA depends on the help from other federal agencies to respond to disasters. So furloughs elsewhere could throw a wrench into the whole operation, even if FEMA itself stays mostly intact. Now, inside FEMA, only disaster-related work would likely continue. The National Flood Insurance Program, that lapsed on September 30th. So FEMA won't issue any new policies, but they'll still offer payouts for valid claims with their available funds.
Yeah, well, that's just a lot of impacts there. Thank you so much, Ivan, for diving into this. It's definitely an important issue that we're going to be paying attention to, especially here in Western North Carolina with the cleanup from Helene as well. So thank you again, Ivan. All right, now we're going to take a look at Megan Bragg's Verified. She's going to talk about how the shutdown is going to impact those FEMA recovery efforts from Helene in Western North Carolina.
A year ago, Hurricane Helene left around $60 billion in damage in North Carolina. Cleanup continues, but with the government shutdown, how will this impact Western North Carolina? Let's verify.
Our sources: North Carolina Governor Josh Stein, North Carolina House Representative Tim Moore, and the federal government. On the first day of the shutdown, Governor Stein confirmed on X that FEMA operations like debris removal will not be impacted by the shutdown, at least for right now. He also called upon the Trump administration to grant an exception for all WNC recovery-related efforts.
I was glad to see that work has not stopped right now.
Wednesday, North Carolina Congressman Tim Moore went to Lake Lure and Chimney Rock to see if recovery efforts are continuing. He says work will continue unless the shutdown continues for weeks.
I'm told that if it gets to close to 30 days, that's when it could be a problem. So if this thing can get resolved in under 30 days, we should not see, as I'm told, any issues, but I don't want to take the chance of that.
The last shutdown in 2018 lasted over 30 days. Several towns in Western North Carolina are waiting for FEMA to reimburse them for funds spent after Hurricane Helene, which could be slowed down even more because of the shutdown. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
Yeah, Tim, if it's not one thing, it's another. You know, the recovery's been so slow. We heard a lot about the recovery, just the trickle of money coming in. It's coming, but it's just been painstakingly slow. And this is just another thing now folks in Western North Carolina have to deal with, and not what they want to deal with. It's a year removed from this storm, and we're still dealing with trying to get the funding in here. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's so frustrating, right? I mean, it's one thing, you make it through the storm, you survive the storm, and you do your best to kind of get yourself back on the feet. But, you got to have some help. And so it is difficult to see just how slow that's been going. Last week, a lot of the attention was, of course, on Imelda, and we started to kind of get mentally prepared of, gosh, what's it going to be like if we get another storm up here? How's that going to look? How's everyone going to battle back from that? We avoided that concern, and so the question is, what does October have in store? We just kind of briefly touched on this, but if you look at the tropics on the whole, right now there's really not a whole lot going on. Yesterday we were still talking about a full-fledged hurricane with Imelda in Bermuda, but now that is not the case, as we said. What's left of the storm is right about here, and really it's booking it. But this is just kind of a cluster of rain and storms at this point, and probably still some gnarly winds up there, Brad. But, we kind of see this basically just going along the North Atlantic from here. So it won't be a factor in the tropical concerns over the next couple of days. I think the question is, what happens with these areas of interest? Yeah. And we always get these from the Hurricane Center. So I kind of call these lemons sometimes. You get these little lemon blobs here. There's one by Florida, which typically would sound some alarm bells. They just circled this, I think, out of some caution. There's a little bit of a backdoor front almost in that area, and you've got about a 10% chance of development. I wouldn't expect much of anything out of that, would you?
No. I mean, the thing about that, as you mentioned, I think that's just the kind of the more tropical kind of moisture setup there. And with it being close to land already, there's a trough, there's a front. The conditions aren't great. The only thing it has going for it is warm water. And so other than that, probably not going to do much. But, yeah, it looks like a big rainmaker. And that's actually probably going to be the first impact we'll notice is some of that tropical moisture trying to come north. East coast of Florida, they're going to get soaked there. But, the funny thing is Florida actually could use some rain as well. They've been pretty dry most of this summer as well. So it'll be interesting to see, what that does for them. But we'd love to get that further north up towards us. That other system, Tim, I think that's the one I had more of I don't want to say concern, but that's one I would watch just because that's the main development region. And that is in the location where we typically see October storms kind of, I wouldn't say go crazy, but they tend to really develop quickly down in that region.
Yeah, I think it's worth watching, certainly, and we probably have several days before it gets its act together. There's really not anything to track right now, but just kind of looking at climatology, and I'll pop on our lovely website. They do it better than everybody. I don't know why, but it's called weathernerds.org. And these are the ensemble plots. So as you go, this is about 10 days away from now, but they do kind of show some development in the middle here. And then they kind of favor a strengthening storm somewhere around here, closer to that 8 to 10 day window. So again, that's something to watch. Most of them right now are curving away. This is just from the European model, and you can see they don't really have much activity elsewhere, at least not as of right now. So hopefully that continues. We'll see if it continues, but we have time to track it.
I always like to get to the middle of October before I start like breathing a little bit more of a little sigh of relief. We can still get storms, obviously, well into November. Trust me, we've had some come blazing up here with rain and wind, but you know, the big ones are usually the first 2 weeks of October, Tim, at least for our area. And then we start to see things shift down to the south and be more of Caribbean, Central America. That's where we tend to see the late season storms. So kind of knocking on Formica or wood or whatever we got our desk made of here, that we don't see a system in the next 2 weeks, because then after that, the chances, they're not zero, but they start to trend down dramatically for us.
For sure. And just a little update. I think we got this about an hour ago. It was kind of impressive how many bad impacts there were to Highway 12 in the Outer Banks in those areas. They just reopened Highway 12 on Ocracoke at 6 o'clock, and they just resumed the ferries. I don't know if I'd want to be on one of those ferries right now because it's pretty choppy, but it's open, and they're going back and forth yet again. These waves are still churned up, and it looks like they'll stay that way through the rest of the week.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's, I mean, I would attest some of this to the tropical systems, but there's also a pretty good pressure gradient on the East Coast. We've got a big ridge, over the Northeast and low pressure in the Middle Atlantic. So it's kind of a pressure gradient wind that's producing a lot of this now, more so than tropical. So, this might be a thing that persists for a while just because of the setup on the East Coast.
You're right. You know, if you go to the beach a lot and you ever notice when there's a northeast wind, especially along the way that our coastline is shaped, it tends to be a bit choppier, a bit worse for waves, and kind of agitated. That's been the case actually quite often in the Outer Banks this summer. When we've talked to Sam Walker with the Outer Banks News out there, he's mentioned a couple times that it's been like this a lot since August with a northeast flow. Usually not good beach weather in the Outer Banks.
Yeah, and that's where the term nor'easter comes from, by the way. Everybody thinks that they're storms that only form in the Northeast. Right. It's a northeast wind that is what the nor'easter is known for. And so when you see a setup like this, Tim, it's like having like a permanent nor'easter just sitting there pounding them with northeast winds. And that tends to be a really bad flow, and especially in that Buxton, Rodanthe area, because they're like, this is perpendicular to that swell, basically, if you will. And I think that's why we saw so many houses. I think we're up to 8 houses, if I'm not mistaken, as of today. I don't remember that many houses in such a short period of time.
I don't either. Usually it's 1 or 2, and this one is just, many, many more. And it's difficult to predict because I wouldn't have expected that. The impacts to the highway water level and to the homes they're not apples to apples, it doesn't seem, because 12's been open most of the time.
Yeah, 12 has actually fared pretty well. Normally, it's like that's the first sign. If we see 12 overwash, we're like, hey, it's a big deal. We saw the homes go down first before we saw any issues on Highway 12, which is awfully rare. Tim, just one other thing I want to hit on here is we talked briefly about the drought monitor. I had a couple people say, hey, we got rain earlier this week. Why are we still in drought? And I think Brittany's going to talk with you about this tomorrow. But one of the things about the drought monitor, and we talk a lot about this, it seems weird to say this, but it's just not about rain. It's about the impacts. And we mentioned this yesterday when we talked about wildfire and crop stress and stream flows. It's really all those things. And sometimes those things don't change even with rainfall. So it's really an impact-focused monitor more so than just strictly straight up rain.
Yeah, it is, and I was a little surprised. Our area up here in the Piedmont got lowered from a moderate drought to just the abnormally dry. But still, everybody in the state could use some rain, and I think we're seeing this with the fall color reports as well. That this drier weather has taken a little bit of a toll. So we'll see what next week brings. But in the meantime, It's going to be beautiful weather. Should be great weather this weekend. I know you got a busy one in Charlotte with some racing going on. That's good to see.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So here's a live view from Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Roval 400 this weekend. Great weekend of racing out there. This is a really cool event. Normally when there's NASCAR, we always worry about rain. For the Roval, they can run in light rain because they can put the rain tires on. They got the big wiper. They just can't run in heavy rain because I've actually gone on the Roval in a Tegra, like a Toyota. It's kind of hilly. You don't think it is being as hilly, but what happens is when there's a lot of spray, and if you've been on the interstate behind a semi-truck, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you get a bunch of spray from the cars, visibility becomes an issue. So when the visibility gets reduced, they usually will postpone a road race. But just light rain, they'll race right through it. So it is an interesting race. It's also a road course where you can sit in the stands and see the entire course. Typically, other road courses like Watkins Glen, you go out west to Sonoma, some of these other road courses, you pick a corner and you just wait for the cars to come by, or a straightaway. Out here at the Speedway, you get to see the whole thing. Yep. And because of that big screen you see off in the distance there, you can actually see the whole race at any point. So it's a cool event. We also got a home Panthers game this weekend, Tim. I don't know what to expect from a football standpoint. It seems to be an every other weekend kind of thing. It's a great one week, it's bad the next, so we'll see how it goes. But at least the weather will be good, right?
Yeah. We're rooting for them. We're supporting them. We're hoping for the best. Say the first home game was good. Maybe this one will be good as well. But
yeah, maybe home.
We'll I just like to say Roval. Have fun at the Roval.
It's a cool term. Thanks for sticking around. We're out of time tonight. Stick around. Vanessa Rufus is coming up next.